Hello, everyone. Let's head over to Collectively Rewilding. All right. We had a bit of a false start there, definitely. Little interesting. We wanted to make sure we had covered the article that is for one of our members, Wendy, and we apparently did do that last week. None of us could remember, but we did. So, Wendy, if you're watching this one at some point, you definitely want to watch last week's episode. And so that would be on the 21st. The 21st has an article that's really good for your area of gardening space, right? All right. So I was able to find the most recent episode of Mother Earth News off of the stand, and I have the newest Mother Earth News magazine. And so we have Live Off the Land. And I think that we'll dive into that one first and come back to the newest full article. So we'll just kind of start off at the beginning with one of the bigger articles here. And this is going to be Mother Earth News, Live Off the Land, a reissue of a special edition, Meredith Specials. And that's all the information that we get there. All right, this is perfect for this time of year. Reap the garden and market bounty, how to dry food. All right, so this is perfectly up your alley here, Miss Tammy, and we will begin reading. Reap the Garden and Market Bounty, How to Dry Food by Barbara Pleasant. Dry the harvest to stock up on homegrown snacks and convenience foods for year-round eating. Many gardens freeze, Many gardeners freeze, can, or give away surplus zucchini and tomatoes. But what about drying them? Not only is drying a delicious way to preserve and concentrate the flavors of your fruits, veggies, and herbs, but if dried, produce oh my goodness, you guys, I am so sorry. I hope this is going to work out. Quitting cigarettes is such a great thing, but it does really affect the vocal cords. Okay, so let's go here where we to concentrate the flavors of your fruits, veggies, and herbs. But if dried, produce requires little space and no electricity to store, so you can enjoy it in fall and winter too. One year, I dried peppers, squash, garlic, and quite a few cherry tomatoes, which brought much comfort when a power outage pushed my frozen treasures to the brink of thaw. The biggest revelation came in early spring when I began using dried foods as other stockpiled veggies ran low. I discovered that cooking with home-dried foods is as easy as cooking with packaged convenient foods at a fraction of the cost. Sweet dried fruits and crunchy veggies are great in meals, but they're good enough to enjoy as snacks too. What can you dry? From tomatoes and beets to sweet corn and green beans, almost any vegetable that can be blanched and frozen is a likely candidate for drying, along with apples, strawberries, peaches, and most other fruits. In times past, people waited for a spell of dry, breezy weather to dry bunches of herbs or peppers threaded on a piece of string. The first dehydrator I ever used was a parked car. Just lay the goods on the dash or under the rear window. You will only need a warm oven to dry a basket of shiitake mushrooms, but unless you live in an arid climate, let me read that again, that doesn't sound right. You will need only a warm oven to dry a basket of shiitake mushrooms, but unless you live in an arid climate where sun drying is practical, you'll eventually want a dehydrator. I actually do live in a dry climate, and I do intend to dry things outdoors in the open air. I'm very excited about it. I've been trying to convince my husband to build me a drying rack outside for around 10 years now. I'm guessing I'll probably manage to get one made in the next 2 or 3 years. All right, so David Cavignaro compares plug-in options in choosing a food dehydrator in motherearthnews.com/choose-dehydrator. So we'll definitely add that article into Collectively Rewilding later, as that's one that you can access online. All right, so he compares plug-in options, and Eben Fodder shares his expertise on how to build simple, non-electric food dryers in the article, Build a Solar Food Dehydrator, also located on motherearthnews.com/build-dehydrator. For other options, see motherearthnews.com/solar-food. It's really a neat way to be able to dry food, and it's such an old tradition. But back to the food. Do you want the simplicity of scalloped potatoes from a box, but homegrown? Or how about the makings for dozens of pasta salads in which everything but the noodles came from your garden or a local farm? With a stash of dried foods at the ready, you can get home from work, set some dried veggies to soak, and then flop down for a few minutes, talk to the kids, or change your clothes. By the time you're back in the kitchen, you'll be greeted by plump, pre-cut, organically grown veggies ready to be stir-fried, sautéed, simmered, or tossed with dressing for a fast salad. You'll see that drying foods to stockpile is one of the easiest ways to achieve a local diet. Back to the money. Organic convenience foods have a place in busy lives, but you pay for the time and energy involved in their creation. You subsidize the growing, drying, packaging, shipping, and marketing, and it all adds up to some hefty retail prices. A dried organic vegetable soup kit costs $5 to $20, and a frozen entree can push $8 or more. The organic skillet dinner category runs somewhere in between, and it's an example of making your own for about 50 cents using home-dried foods. Drying peppers and herbs can save you big bucks at the spice rack too. And if you make your own smoky sweet paprika or hot pepper blend, your cooking improves as you discover new ways to use the blends to punch up your favorite dishes. Drying with attitude. In Lanesboro, Minnesota, organic gardener and food drying expert Mary Bell thinks people should look at food drying with a creative eye. Bell has invented what can only be called new foods, such as succulent half-dried tomatoes seasoned with basil and thyme, or cantaloupe candy, chunks of cantaloupe seasoned with ginger and powdered sugar before drying. To deal with bountiful crops of hard-to-preserve eggplant, she figured out how to cut eggplant into strips, soak them in a salt lemon juice solution, and dry them into pasta-like strands. For overripe zucchini, she marinates thin slices before drying them into chips. According to Bell, the principle behind her book, Food Drying with an Attitude, is sustainability. I want everybody to have food they can supply for themselves year-round, Bell says. Drying can provide a way to use things you already have instead of buying from some other place. Bell removes ribs from big kale leaves, dries them raw, and crushes them into a jar to use as all-purpose pot herbs. So pot herbs are just a loose blend of herbs that you can add to something that you're cooking, generally more towards a savory sort of cooking. She also sells them at her farmer's market booth alongside her locally famous fruit leathers and dried tomatoes, a springtime treat that satisfies customers' appetites for fresh flavors. If people are given permission to try new things, they are often surprised at what they can dry, such as marked down bananas at the store. Bell says, adding that drying food is a simple skill to master. Food drying is 1, 2, 3 easy. Slice or dice food into small, uniform pieces. Dip the pieces in an acidic solution or blanch them to enhance the quality of the final product. Place the pieces in single layers to dry and turn as needed to help them dry more quickly. Most vegetables are dried to a crisp, but fruits are done when they become leathery. Bell points out, however, that there is plenty of room in between, such as savory chunks of half-dried tomatoes. If you want to try drying using only a sunny windowsill during the day and a warm from the pilot light oven at night, start with veggies that can be dried raw: garlic, mushrooms, cherry tomatoes, and peppers, and fresh greens such as kale or chard. First wash greens in cool water, then pat dry between towels. Onions, okra, horseradish, and many herbs are dried raw too, but don't wait until your onions get soft. Instead, select onions for drying that may not store well. As I harvest garlic, I set aside the best bulbs for replanting and then dry some of the rest. When the fresh garlic runs out, usually in February, the dried garlic fills in until the new crop is ready. The high sugar and acid content of apples, pears, and peaches makes them great candidates for dip and dry treatments, in which cut pieces are dipped in an acidic solution to stop the oxidation process, that darkens them. So that's the oxygen interaction with the plant, right, with the produce. Orange, pineapple, or cranberry juice work well, and you can drink the leftover juice when you're finished. You may like the flavor enhancement from using pineapple juice, or the colors you get from letting apple slices soak in cranberry juice for an hour before drying. Some vegetables also darken when dried, but that's easy to prevent by soaking the pieces in a mixture of 1 part lemon juice to 4 parts water. That was the one I was expecting to hear was lemon. Very interesting to hear that cranberry juice, as well as the citrus, and pineapple is not a citrus. However, it is known to have an incredibly high acidic content, right? All right, check your berries. If you want to replace the organic trail mixes you've been buying with a homemade version, go for it. Blueberries, cherries, cranberries, seedless grapes, and figs do require extra steps to get great results. But if you can boil water, you can dry them. After they've been washed, drained, and pitted if necessary, check the fruits by dipping them in rapidly boiling water for 2 seconds, or pour boiling water over them for a count of 4. After the water drains away, spread the fruits on cookie sheets, pat dry, and pop them in the freezer for 1 to 2 hours. Then take them out and dry them right away. The boiling water cracks the skins, and the brief freezing breaks down cell walls, transforming the fruits into incredibly tasty nuggets for snacks, cereals, or baking. Try drying them halfway to the chewiness of raisins, which will require refrigerated storage because of their high moisture content. Fruit dried until near crisp can be stored in any cool, dark place. To rehydrate, just soak it in water for an hour before eating. Steaming and blanching. When preparing veggies for drying, blanch them in boiling water, or better yet, use a steamer to limit their uptake of water and fix enzymes. Broccoli florets and carrot slices that are steam blanched and dried transform into soup in minutes. Just add stock. And rehydrated steam blanched green beans almost pass for the freshly picked version. Sweet corn dries beautifully too, and it's easiest to handle if you blanch the whole ears before cutting off the kernels. Instead of blanching beets, winter squash, and pumpkins, roast them until almost done before peeling, cutting into slices or chunks, and drying them. Simple, safe storage. Many foods that seem to be dried to perfection when you stash them in airtight containers may surprise you by going soft again as moisture levels equalize inside the container. Putting the pieces back into the dehydrator for an hour or 2 will fix the problem, making it possible to store the food at cool temperatures for up to a year. Keep chewy cherries, half-dried herb tomatoes, and other dried foods that are still slightly moist in your refrigerator or freezer to prevent mold. Freezer storage also is a good idea for foods dried outdoors because it will kill any insects hiding in crevices. Prepare to be amazed at how little storage space your dried food requires. I can fit 5 big zucchinis, 3 butternut squash, 12 fat garlic bulbs, and 20 pounds each of tomatoes and peppers on one basement shelf after they're dried. I never have to worry if the power stays off for days, but best of all, I always have something fast and easy to cook that came from my own organic garden. Of course, non-gardening cooks can also stock up at the farmer's market when harvest is high and you're likely to find the best deals. It's a great way to support local farmers now, save money, and keep eating delicious local foods all winter long. Some drying tips. Make creative cuts. Try using an egg cutter or other unusual blades to slice mushrooms or carrots into attractive serrated slices or matchsticks before drying them. If you do a lot of drying or pickling, a manual mandolin slicer, interesting, can be a huge time saver. Mandolin slicer? Do it outside. When using an electric dehydrator, run it outdoors, in a place protected from rain, to avoid heating up your kitchen, or run it at night. Dry on a shrub. If you suddenly need lots of space to dry a tree's worth of apples or pears, spread an old sheet over a dense bush, such as a boxwood, spread out the fruit, and cover it with cheesecloth to keep out insects. With good weather, the fruits will dry in 2 days. At night, when it's damp, bring the fruit indoors and spread it on an unused bed or table. Make fruit leathers. Cut them into kid-pleasing roll-ups by combining equal parts of any fruit puree with thick applesauce before drying on lightly oiled sheets. A small amount of gelatin mixed into the fruit mixture helps leathers set up and dry more rapidly. Powder your culls. Dry onions, garlic, asparagus, snap beans, and other vegetables. Okay, let me read that again. It'll sound better. Dry onions, garlic, asparagus, snap beans, and other vegetables. Then grind them into a vegetable powder. Mixed with a little water or oil, vegetable powders work like vegetable bouillon. Use a small coffee mill to chop dried vegetables and herbs into coarse pieces or fine powders. Interesting. Pick up your scissors. Before rehydrating dried tomato or zucchini slices, cut them into smaller pieces with kitchen shears to help them plump up faster. Get wet. When cooking, add dried vegetables to the moistest part of a dish. For example, sprinkle dried tomatoes and peppers over the sauce layer of a pizza rather than on top of the cheese. Very interesting. Well, as you are our food preservation specialist, Miss Tammy, what did you think about that article?
It's really good, Sabrina. I was listening. Sorry, my husband's talking.
Absolutely. What is he saying?
Oh no, he's fixing the gate, so he just came in and started talking to me as soon as you asked me that question.
Wonderful. Is that
Yeah.
from the weather damage, or is that a different project that you guys are working on?
Oh, it's that just the fencing, where the big hole in the hill is. So
Okay.
Daryl's cleaning, not cleaning that area, but like putting like a fancy thing there and yeah, trying to fix it. So
That's wonderful.
Yeah, but I did like the article. It was pretty
Very
cool.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And what about you, Ken and Vanessa? Did you guys enjoy it? Did you learn anything?
It was interesting. Some of the, one of those words you said, I guess it was a plant or something drying. I don't even know what that is.
Can you try to remember what the word was? And you're muted if you're trying to talk, Miss Vanessa.
I can't remember what it was.
Was it a fruit or a vegetable or a type of a tool, or?
I think it was a fruit, or I'm not sure.
You think it was a what? I'm sorry?
A fruit?
A fruit? Okay. I'm not sure. There were a few things in there, actually. So let's go and look up some definitions of a few of these words. That's a really good point. All right. Let's see here. There were several things. First, we'll go and grab the articles that were recommended. The first being choosing a food dehydrator at motherearthnews.com/choose dehydrator. And grab that article there. We'll place this in actually member meetups, because that's where so much of what Tammy shares involving food preservation is kind of the place for it here. So we'll go ahead and share it in this space instead of sharing it in Yard for Tall Tales. Choosing a food dehydrator. We'll notify everyone there. Then we have building a food dehydrator. So it is build dehydrator. And this is the one that I'm the most interested in, absolutely. All right, so there are the different ways that you can go about dehydrating. We won't talk about the pictures too much, but it's definitely a great little article for anyone interested. And let's throw that into member meetups as well. going through the article again really quickly to see if anything sticks out at me. It wouldn't have been like the smoky sweet paprika, right, Vanessa?
No.
I didn't think so. Kale is pretty common. Pot herbs, let's look that one up, right? That's a kind of unused word these days. Pot herbs, any herb grown for culinary use, right? And it's kind of just like something that everybody has their own sort of mixture. Any herb prepared as food by cooking in a pot as spinach or added as seasoning in cookery as thyme, right? It's a pretty broad definition, okay? So you could throw some garlic, dried onion, and dried sweet paprika, and that would be a really good mix, and that could be what you called pot herbs. It's very loosely defined. All right. Where did I find that one at? Here we go. And then they did explain further on in the article, because I wanted to know, well, what were you recommending as an acidic solution when they said food drying is as easy as 1, 2, 3, right? Slice or dice food, 1, dip the pieces in an acidic solution, 2, place the pieces in single layers to dry, 3, right? But then I'm like, what's the acidic solution? But they did orange, pineapple, or cranberry. Also, they talked about lemon juice with 4 parts water to 1 part lemon juice. Not figs. That wouldn't be what you didn't recognize, right, Vanessa?
Yeah, no, not that. I don't know what it was.
Shiitake mushrooms. Sweet corn. Butternut squash, perhaps?
No, maybe I know mushrooms, but maybe not that type of mushroom.
And maybe that just kind of stuck out to you as that particular type of mushroom.
Yeah, tofaki, I guess, because I haven't heard of that before.
It seemed like there was one other term in here that I had wanted to look at, but I'm not finding that one popping out at me either. All right, so I wondered if I shouldn't have just stopped in the middle of reading it and looked it up, and that lets me know as we're working out this process of handling a podcast style live, that in the moment, if one of you has a question, if one of the words that I'm coming across and I have a question, or I think it needs a little bit further explanation, anything like that, let's do it in the moment, guys. So just go ahead and unmute yourselves or throw up a hand. Probably gotta unmute yourselves because I'm not watching the screen, I'm reading the articles, right? So I'll start saying that at the beginning of each Yarn Yard for Tall Tales as well, so that everybody knows in that moment what is the best way to ask their question. And I was surprised. She talked very, very briefly in passing about drying herbs. She didn't really mention how you go about doing that, where you bundle your herbs and wrap a string and hang them, or put them on a gauze tray, right? You can build a tray that is, the shelf itself is gauze, so that you can do like loose leaves if you don't want the stems to be a part of it, different things like that. So there's definitely some additional material to dive into in the world of food dehydration, which is my particular favored method of food preservation. I like things that I know I could do no matter whether we had electricity, refrigeration, any of those types of situations. Canning is awesome, but you have to have manufactured lids to make it safe, right? Before they had the pressure seal, adhesive seal as well, ball style canning lids, it was hit or miss whether or not you actually managed to can and seal your produce properly, whether you were going to get sick or even die from it. So I don't prefer canning or freezing, though they're safe, of course, with our modern methods, our modern manufactured products, the Ball style lids. I believe there's more than just Ball that produce those lids, right? Everybody loves Ball. I would use Ball if I were to be canning, most likely. Anything like that, though, it's different than what it was pre-industrialization of the manufactured line, right? All right. So continuing on, let's jump back into our mini farming self-sufficiency on a quarter acre. And that is by Brett L. Markham. And we are at chapter 2. How mini farming works for you. Many homeowners undertake the task of gardening or small-scale farming as a hobby to get fresh-grown produce and possibly save money over buying food at the supermarket. Unfortunately, the most common gardening methods end up being so expensive that even some enthusiastic garden authors state outright that gardening should be considered at best a break-even affair. That's for a certain period of time, and it also depends on how much you use from outside your system. If you produce a lot of your own compost, if you produce a lot of your own natural fertilizers, if you work on the overall health and you use things like getting free wood chips from getchipdrop.com, all of these different ways of going about doing things. When I'm building the Walipini in the back, when my husband's building my wonderful Walipini that I'm so excited about in the back, I'll help as much as I can, right? Of course. The use of the big tree stumps from our aspen and birch that were felled, utilizing reclaimed windows for the walls that are above ground, looking at the Habitat for Humanity store. All of these things can significantly lower the cost. Not having invested myself in the medium-sized excavator that dug out all of the soil structures that my dad brought down, right? That was something that he utilizes a lot, and he has different deals. He can get those pieces of equipment at a much better rate than I can, and he's also the operator. So that was a way to save money. Doing all these different things, the fact that I'm making it into a business, not just a hobby or just to try to save money, that will also make it a much more cost-effective endeavor, because each of these things is a tax write-off that we're buying, from my understanding. Don't quote me. I'm not a tax expert. I'm no CPA, any of these kinds of things, right? But the things that I purchase and invest into my business, I believe are generally considered tax write-offs, and that's how I'm going to approach it. And so it's all about how we approach it. It's all about how quickly we go about doing it. Just like in that article we read last week, where she did talk about going and getting reclaimed material. If you go to your local thrift stores, and there are pots that you can use there. I just got some really adorable little pots at my local thrift store. One is a terracotta in the shape of a little heart, and 2 little miniature terracotta pots that are only about, maybe 3 inches tall by 2 inches round at the top and 1 inch round at the bottom, and a couple of little plant pot bottoms, terracotta, that match the little planters, right? And there are other things that you can get in thrift stores a lot of different times. There are also Habitat for Humanity restores all around the nation, and that's something that you can check into. Some places have reclaimed stores. We had one for a short time in Cortez, Colorado, and it had all types of reclaimed materials from buildings that were either getting torn down or remodeled, anything like that. And they would bring the materials to this wonderful store. And there are stores like that in different areas. So look for any way that you can to lower your costs. And that's another reason why we talk about starting out slower rather than larger. Make your investment make sense. Do it as a smaller investment over time, knowing that you are more able to control it as you're learning, so that as you get larger and larger, you're learning and growing with it, and not at any one time did it cost a tremendous amount, right? Also, talk to your local co-ops, your extension offices. They have types of programs that are there. Your libraries have seed libraries. There are so many ways to lower the cost of starting a garden, all right? Perhaps we need to have a class like that at points too. Not yet, but maybe next season. Cost saving beginning gardening or something like that. Would probably have a lot of value. All right. Looking at the most common gardening methods, such authors are absolutely correct. Common gardening methods are considerably more expensive than they need to be because they were originally designed to benefit from the economies of scale of corporate agribusiness. When home gardeners try to use these methods on a smaller scale, it's a miracle if they break even over a several-year period, and it is more likely they will lose money. The cost of tillers, watering equipment, large quantities of water, transplant seeds, fertilizers, and insecticides adds up pretty quickly. Balance against the fact that most home gardeners grow only vegetables, and vegetables make up only less than 10% of the calories an average person consumes, it quickly becomes apparent that even if the cost of a vegetable garden were zero, the amount of actual money saved in the food bill would be negligible. Now, in my household, that is not the case. We eat a huge amount of fruits and vegetables. It's all a part of following the WALL protocol, which is WAHL, WALL, like the last name, WAHL, WALL's protocol. It's an amazing diet, and I encourage anyone that's struggling with any kind of medical condition really to check it out to see if it might be something that would be beneficial to them. It has been hugely beneficial to my household. All right. For example, if the total economic value of the vegetables collected from the garden in a single season amounted to about $350, which you've got to at least probably close to triple that, to from $350, let's say right around $1,000. Food has gone up so much in cost, and the vegetables could be produced for free, the economic benefit would amount to only $7 per week when divided over the year. So if that went up by about 3 times, that would be about $21 a week when divided over the year. So it's all kind of subjective, but it would definitely increase the value if you plant things that you're going to eat and going to preserve. For example, I do love fresh zucchini. My family, not so much. So preserving the zucchini to make for zucchini bread is really the route that I want to go. We've tried to do that previously, but the amount of shredding involved in the zucchini was not very tenable for us. So the next challenge is to find a legitimate way to quickly shred zucchini to be able to freeze it or dry it for things like zucchini bread, muffins, adding it into a soup where it just mostly disintegrates. It's not a huge amount of textural problem for the rest of the family, right? The solution to this problem is to both cut costs and increase the value of the end product. Exactly. This can be accomplished by growing your own seedlings from open pollinated plant varieties so you can save the seeds and avoid the expense of buying both transplants and seeds using intensive gardening techniques. So that's like a separate thing. Okay, so but let's pause there. Okay, so not only do you want to use seedlings from open pollinated, non-GMO, heirloom style fruits and vegetables, right? But you also want to create your own opportunities for saving money by going to the seed library. Sorry, I had to regather my thoughts. that's one huge opportunity. And so let's just put a link into Collectively Rewilding, if we can find one, for a listing of seed libraries in the US. See if they have any sort of a platform. There is no single national listing of US seed libraries. Instead, you can find local resources through organizations like Community Seed Network, or by contacting your local public library or agricultural extension office, and by checking websites of seed-saving groups or university libraries, such as the Michigan State University's Libraries Seed Library Resource Guide. Many public libraries and community organizations like the Salt Lake Public Library operate their own seed libraries. All right, so we'll share that information in there, and there are some great links that we'll add, such as the Sustainable Libraries Initiative, Seed Library Resources, Sustainable Libraries Initiative. So we'll get this all up there for you guys in Collectively Rewilding. So that's one thing that we definitely want to get up there. Let's also get a listing of, let's see, what were the other resources that they specifically talked about there? Oh, no, they don't. It's just, no, they did. I'm sure they did. I remember reading something, I swear, that was like the extension offices. But I guess it was just because I talked to you guys about it. Okay, listing of county extension offices in the U.S. All right, I believe there's an easier way to do this. Here we go, National Pesticide. List of all 50 extension services through the Arkansas Cooperative Extension. And so here we have this entire list of all of the extension offices around the United States. And we'll share that for you all in Collectively Rewilding. And that one we'll put up into Yarn Yard for Tall Tales. This was a really heavy resource type of a discussion, so I may create an entire little document for us about all these different little things that we talked about tonight, because there were a lot of really great pieces that we discussed. So back to saving money, and we'll read till the next subsection. Okay, so you want to avoid the expense of buying both transplants and seeds, using intensive gardening techniques that use less land, conscientiously composting to reduce the need for fertilizers, and growing calorie-dense crops that will supply a higher proportion of the household's caloric intake. Using this combination, the economic equation will balance in favor of the gardener instead of the garden supply store, and it becomes quite possible to supply all of a family's food except meat from a relatively small garden. According to the USDA, the average annual per capita expenditure on food was $2,964 in 2001, with food costs increasing at a rate of 27.7% over the previous 10 years. Well, it's increased quite a lot more than that. Understanding that food is purchased with after-tax dollars, it becomes clear that home agricultural methods that take a significant chunk out of that figure can make the difference, for example, between a parent being able to stay at home with children and she or he having to work, or it could vastly improve the quality of life of a retiree on a fixed income. The key to making a garden work to your economic benefit is to approach mini farming as a business. Whether you're a business or not, still approach it like a business, right? No, it is not a business in the sense of incorporation and taxes, unless some of its production is sold, but it is a business in that by reducing your food expenditures, it has the same net effect on finances as income from a small business. Like any small business, it could earn money or lose money depending on how it is managed. And in addition to that, we've also talked several times about how you can relatively easily add in some small scale meat production, rabbits, quails, turtles, different types of opportunities that are out there. Even bug farms are possible options these days. All right, guys. So any questions, any thoughts about what we were reading there?
How much does a dehydrator usually go for?
Well, let's just go and take a peek at our article for dehydration from Mother Earth News. As the only dehydrator that I've ever had was a gift. And so I didn't actually have to spend the money myself. So let's just pull this right on up. Check it out. We don't quite have time to read through the whole article. Maybe we should do that next week. Many different electric dehydrator models are available. I settled on 4 that best represent the various designs available. Lequip's Model 528, Nesco American Harvest's Garden Master, Excalibur's Large Garden, and Living Foods Jumbo Dehydrator. They fall into 2 categories, those with stackable trays and those constructed of a rigid box with removable shelves. Size is a factor. Most fit on a countertop, but larger models are freestanding and require more space. Some models have base-mounted fans that move hot air vertically. One has a rear-mounted fan for moving air horizontally, yet another uses convection drying with no fan at all. I put these 4 different models through their paces during the peak of the humid harvest season here in Iowa. Each dehydrator dried lots of herbs and vegetables with comparable ease, but the fleshy crops like tomatoes and peaches put the dehydrators to the ultimate test, determining their maximum capacity, efficiency, and overall effectiveness. Model 1, a stackable dehydrator unit tested. There's 2 of those, I'm guessing, by the way that he said that. No, okay, maybe. This is really kind of a weirdly phrased little statement. Yeah, so there's 2 of them, 2 stackable dehydrator units tested. Lequip's Model 528, which has rectangular trays, and Nesco American Harvest model with round trays are plastic stackable units with base-mounted fans. The Lequip has 6 trays, expandable to a stack of 20. 2 of the Nesco American Harvest models have 4 trays, expandable to 12. Nesco's Garden Master, which is designed for less bulky harvests, such as herbs or dried flowers, can accommodate up to 30 trays. While these models may stack up to 30 inches tall, they have a small footprint and consume little counter space. They also provide the least expensive way to get started with food dehydrating, but they all share one big limitation. Uneven heat distribution in the stack means that the trays closest to the heat element and fan dry much faster than those at the top of the stack. Diligent tray rotation is critical, especially if very fleshy foods are being dried. And while perfectly suitable for drying fruits, vegetables, fruit leathers, herbs, and jerky, these machines cannot readily be adapted for any of the other uses the box and shelf models can claim. Okay, so box and shelf dehydrator units tested. I tested 2 rigid box designs with removable shelves that can be adapted for other warming or drying uses in addition to food dehydration. Excalibur's 9-tray large golden model with 15 square feet of drying space, and Living Foods jumbo model with 9 trays and 31 square feet of space. Goodness, that is a lot of space. 31 square feet, wow. Excalibur's dehydrator designs position the heat source and fan at the back of the shelves instead of beneath them. Hot air blowing across the shelves eliminates the bothersome need for tray rotation, and the large garden model is big enough, with some shelves removed to allow other uses, such as leavening bread, culturing yogurt, or drying bulky items. Instead of using a fan, Living Foods dehydrators rely on convection drying. Heat, generated by a heating element mounted at the base of the box, rises through the trays. Living Foods founder Jen McMenamin says a benefit of convection drying is that it eliminates the possibility of contaminating foods with dirt that fans can suck into a dehydrator. However, placing the fan-powered dehydrator in a clean space remedies that potential problem. All right. That's wild. Okay. Convection heating allows silent operation and less use of electricity, but it also takes twice as long to dry bulky, moisture-laden foods like tomatoes and peaches. The longer the drying time, especially during periods of high humidity, the more the dried product's flavor and keeping quality are reduced. Despite their slower drying time and humid conditions, living foods dehydrators may be the most versatile on the market. Besides making yogurt and leavening bread, these dehydrators also can soften honey or butter, re-crisp crackers or popcorn, sprout seeds, or hatch chicks. The company claims its machines have been used to dry not only fruits, vegetables, and meats, but also flowers, paper mache crafts, fine lingerie, rain-soaked boots and gloves, pasta, freshly glued items, children's artwork, tie-dyed clothing, and water-damaged books or papers. As long as I avoided overloading the Living Foods Jumbo with wet items during extremely humid conditions, I successfully produced an abundance of dried food, and the quiet fan-free operation was an added bonus. All right, so it's telling you if you want specialty items to kind of look into some other things here, and then it's just going to get a little more and more in depth. So of those options, which sounded more realistic for you, smaller or larger? Candace.
Well, right now, I guess the smaller one because my garden's small.
Fair
But
enough. All right, so let's just jump over here and go to Amazon. No, the whole point is that I'm in an incognito window. I'm just curious what this is going to do. It doesn't share a specific address. That's better. Okay, so now, actually, let's grab okay, so they didn't really pick a specific one that was better. So L'Equip has 6 trays expandable to a stack of 20. 2 of the Lesko American Garden or Harvest models have 4 trays expandable to 12. Or if you're having less bulky harvests, such as herbs and dried flowers, can accommodate up to 30 trays. Which of those sounds more appropriate? A stack of 20, 2 with 4 trays expandable to 12, or 30 trays for lighter weight things? And you're muted if you're talking.
oh, I said 2 with 4 trays that are stacked
Okay.
to 12. Because that's like
Right.
times 12, it's like 48. That's the most, right? And it's
Yep.
American.
Yep. It sounds like it. Mm-hmm.
It's the American model. It's the American way, apparently.
All right. Let's go grab our little incognito window over here and paste that with the name. All right. And see what they come up with. 192 for a 1,000-watt food dehydrator kit. Then you can go into a different brand, this Basilius, and a smaller unit, right? That doesn't look like it expands at all, for about $40. Nesco
How can
Snack
you fit an
Master.
apple in there?
What's that?
I was about to say, how can you fit an apple or peach? I guess you got to cut it up. Huh?
Exactly. See how they're all sliced right here?
Mm-hmm.
I like this that you can see. I wouldn't like the models that you can't see. Oops, and we weren't supposed to do that part exactly. We're trying to be more about verbal than visual, right? But let's go ahead and throw that into CR for you there, Candace. And it'll be easiest just to pop in there like this. Okay. And that is a list of smaller food dehydrator. All right. So did that give you a Oh, wow, look at that one. That looks nice. See that window there? Interesting. Definitely some interesting stuff there. And don't forget, there is this one here on building a solar food dehydrator yourself, right? Although when you really get into all of the materials and things that you have to buy, folks, a lot of times building one is going to be more expensive than buying one, even than those that we were talking about that were up around 200 to build a dehydrator that's got its frame, all of the pieces would probably be at least as expensive or more expensive than those that were right there around that $200 price. So you've always got to be aware of what it is that you're going to be doing. For myself, I want to dry it out in the sunlight, and I want to be able to dry both fruits and vegetables, as well as things like the leathers, in addition to, at some point in the future, even drying meats. I would like to test out drying meats and doing so with smoke. You do not have to use smoke to dry meats. The smoke is actually something that came along to deter pests, to deter things like blowflies, to keep them from laying eggs in the meat, which spoils it. However, we like the smoky flavor, right? We've become accustomed to it and we like it. And so I would like to play around also with meat dehydration in the outdoor elements, right? I love all of that kind of old school, very old school, old tribal even type of thought process. I'm just fascinated by it, and I think it's really viable. And I feel that there are a lot of very acclaimed, intelligent people across the globe that feel like things could go very badly, very quickly, very easily. And I would rather feel like I could continue on with at least some comfort and ease instead of constant, dark, depressing, struggling for survival. Speaking of which, we
Isn't
will
it called
go
dry
ahead,
aging?
Candace. I'm sorry.
I say, isn't it called dry aging when you do it like with meat?
Maybe. I've never heard that particular term. Let's just check really quickly. Dry aging, we'll just say. Dry aged beef. Okay, interesting. That's a controlled refrigerated environment with specific temperatures, humidity, and airflow. So that's a much more mechanized process than what I'm talking about, but that's very interesting. Ken does. It looks like it makes it taste really, really good. All right. And so speaking of the survival topic, I went through the bag that I was talking to you all about and said it wasn't quite outfitted the way it should be. Took everything miscellaneous out, and I'm getting ready to add some things back in. So we will probably talk about that at one of our upcoming events. I'm not sure. I'm not quite ready to add in another event, although I almost feel like a couple more are needed. And so I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that. But lots to come no matter what. Look for the new member launch pad to actually get launched. As you see, Miss Julia changed our icon so that it's no longer the space rocket, right? Much better to have that compass there than a rocket. And so look for that to be released. And let's just check out our calendar. Coming next will be tomorrow, exploring organic soil regeneration, and that will be at 6:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 p.m. Mountain, 8:30 p.m. Central, and 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Hope to see you all there, and hope to see you as well at our second Let's Quit Together event. Lots of great, wonderful community building, supportive environments. We're not talking about the negative or dreading it. We're just going to get together and talk and be supportive. And hopefully you all are feeling good there. We will get something started in the next week or two, like I had said, about regular check-ins with each other, just 5 to 15 minutes to just pop in and say, hey, I'm doing well, or oh my gosh, you guys, send me some positive wishes. I'm struggling a little bit this week, right? Like those are really important. And so see, as we go forward, lots of great things to roll out. Please feel free to unmute your mics, everyone, and say good night.
Good
Good
night.
night,
Guys, thank you all
everybody.
for coming. Hope you enjoyed the articles. See you all tomorrow and have a great week.